Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe and share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. I will appreciate it. So it's actually a pretty good weekend of boxing, and more importantly, it was a manageable weekend of boxing. There was a few other fairly interesting cards kind of scattered around, but there was two main ones, one from the UK and one from the US. That's always the kind of the best way when you can focus and not have to do, too much and worry about this card, that card, which fight are you going to try and watch from both. And occasionally, depending on if it's an app or if it's like a TV channel, can you get the card or whatever. Sometimes it just gets a bit too much. Like last week's there was a lot going on, and that wasn't too great in terms of actually having a proper enjoyment. But this one was good. It was good. Before I start, I just want to say a quick happy birthday to Karma Serene. As a lot of you might know, she's very, very precious to the boxing community, especially over here, which is funny because she is based in America, although I did find out today she was born in Germany. So maybe that's why she has such an affinity for a lot of the UK channels. She's always frequenting the UK talks, and I guess that she likes the takes and the passion that we have. But no, big up to Karma. Hope you have a great day, and I hope your weekend's been really good. I'm going to keep it real brief today, I promise you that. The card in Dublin, Ireland, I didn't really pay attention to many of the fights. I'm going to be real with you. I watched them all, but I didn't really pay attention. So if we start from where the card started, Sky Nicholson versus Lucy Wildheart. Now, obviously, I got the right person correct. However, the fight didn't play out any way that I expected. I thought that Lucy would do more and push Sky a lot more than she's been pushed because she's got more upper level experience. But Lucy had no answers whatsoever. She walked in straight lines throughout the entire fight. She was hesitant to throw a jab to try and get into range, and every time that she kind of got anywhere near to Sky would literally just spin off, either pop her with a jab or swing or sort of swing a backhand at her. And to be fair, none of the punches looked that bad, if I'm gonna be real, but obviously she managed to bust up Lucy's nose, and in the ninth miraculously managed to get a corner stoppage. They threw in the towel, but I mean, Lucy wasn't hurt, and obviously it didn't look great though. Her face was all busted up and bleeding, but she wasn't like hurt, but she was just getting peppered with shots. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Sky Nicholson's style is not fan friendly. It's not appealing, and I like slick clinical boxers. I'm not a person that says, it has to be all action. Like, I like watching the sweet science, but I like people that can employ the sweet science in all walks of life. So not just being like on the back foot, one punch here, one punch there, maybe throwing 22 punches around. I like people that can that can jab, can move, can be in the kill zone and evade punches as well and make someone miss and make them pay. I like those type of fighters also, or ones that could switch it up. You can be a pure boxer, but the issue I have is the first few rounds I had no issue with what she was doing, but once she could clearly see that she had the measure, the timing and every advantage over what Lucy was doing. Like, change it up, like go be more aggressive, like maybe step on the front foot a little bit more, showboat or something, like just do something to entertain the crowd. And I said on X, look, if the moment she loses a fight, I don't feel she's going to get on cards anymore, because her O is her most important asset, or having a belt, because she's just not entertaining. So the general public doesn't want to watch what she does. And it might change now that she's leaving the Olympics. It might change, or maybe she had a little bit more spite on the punches this time than she had before. And moving forward, there might be more to it. But yeah, I wasn't really. Obviously, I wasn't impressed, but she got her first stoppage, and I'll give her credit for that. Although if you look at it and it says, one knockout on the record, but then you look at the knockout, it's probably one of the poorest that I've seen personally. Also, the way that she can't throw a straight backhand, like it's always a looping shot, and that I think is going to get her in trouble against better opposition, but that's for another time. Congrats to her though, it was a flawless victory. She left with barely a mark on her, and hopefully if she can build on that and improve, then yeah, good stuff. The Thomas Carty fight, I can't remember the other guy's name, Garber. That fight was cheeks, pretty much. It was a very ho-hum, mundane heavyweight fight. I mean, Thomas Carty didn't do anything. He's supposed to have an amateur pedigree and didn't do anything to try and set up his shots. He was just trying to load up, looking for one big shot all night. Eventually, finally got it in the last round. And it was more just, I think, tiredness and accumulation from Garber, because he had never been past 4 rounds before. This was his first 8-rounder, so he jumped from 4 to 8 rounds in one fight. But yeah, I mean, look, Carty I guess he's fun up to a certain level, but I feel like I've already seen his level and where he is going to go in the game. But he got the victory, cool. Gary Cully and Reese Mould. I got this one right as well, although I did predict that Gary Cully would get a TKO victory around about the 9th or the 10th round. This is on my predictions league, not on the previous video. And if I'll actually be honest, I feel like Reese Mould did enough to at least get a draw. And he chin checked Cully quite a few times on that, but I think you can tell him only having 6 KOs was a reason he was chosen, because the shots, I feel like if there was a little bit more behind the shots or a little more rotation in the hips in some of those shots, I think Cully would have went over, because there was some he got hit very flush, and Reese Mould saw that he had that opening pretty much all night, especially from the overhand right. And yeah, he just didn't have the power to be able to affect it, and obviously he didn't have the ability to throw punches in bunches, because Cully was so much taller than him. So whenever he would kind of get one big shot in, then Cully would be able to sort of kind of spy the tentacle him and just grab him and hold on until the ref called the break. But it's a comeback win for him. I don't know how much it does for his confidence, because there's still some gaping flaws that haven't been addressed yet, but hopefully Joe McNally can kind of sort those out. Main event. Okay, I did get this one right. Last time I did pick Chantel Cameron, and funny enough, I said it would be by split decision, and it ended up being a majority decision. So this time I said I think Katie Taylor's going to win, and it's either going to be a split or majority, and it ended up being a majority. It was an exact reversal of what happened last time. Now, in my predictions league, I put it as a split, so you have to pick a particular one. So I won't get the full points for the victory, but I knew Katie was gonna do it. I saw basically from the last fight, if you look at those last couple of rounds, Katie was beating Chantel to the exchanges on the inside, and then she was clinching and holding to stop Chantel from doing as much work, hence why she was able to win so many of the last rounds. When she was trying to box a move and time Chantel and lay traps for her, that wasn't working, because Chantel, number one, was too quick and the jab was too disruptive, and she was able to get her feet into range. I also do think that Chantel came into this one a little bit too confident, feeling like, because I can take her power, I'm just going to walk her down. She wasn't popping the jab out as much as she was in the first fight. Now, part of that is because Katie wasn't moving as much, so she wasn't able to catch her on sort of the back foot and disrupt her rhythm with that jab. But the jab was the key for her having all of her success, and she didn't use it enough. Now, in the first round, I looked at it in real time, Katie Taylor did get knocked down. It was a legit knockdown. It was a punch that landed flush, and Katie was off balance. She was slightly moving backwards, off balance. She gets hit, and her legs, her legs wobble. But when I first saw it and the ref waved it off, I thought, oh, maybe Chantel stepped on her foot or something. So I looked for the replays, and I was making sure I was looking at the feet, and no, the feet were side by side, but Chantel's foot never knocked or came into contact with Katie's. They was close to each other, but they didn't touch. So it was a legit knockdown, and that should have been scored a 10-8 round to Chantel. However, the one thing I will say is Katie wasn't winning the first round. So the fact that the knockdown happened, it would have just lost her 1 point. If the rest of the fight then carried on exactly as it was, she still would have won the fight 95-94 on my card. I gave the rounds, I had it Cameron winning the first round, then I had Katie Taylor winning the next 4. I had it 4-1 to Katie after 5. The 6th round I gave to Chantel through really hard, aggressive and more effective power punching. 7th round I gave to Katie. The 8th round I gave to Chantel, and the 9th round I gave to Chantel, and then the 10th round I gave to Katie Taylor. So I had it 96-94. One of the other judges had it same as me, but their scorecard, they gave some of the other rounds different. The judge that actually had it basically the exact same as mine was the judge that scored it a draw, minus the I think it was the 5th round. They gave the 5th round to Chantel Cameron, whereas I gave the 5th to Katie. But other than that, our scorecards were exactly the same. And for the most part, my scorecard was the same with Barry Jones, except for when it went to the 7th round. Because he gave the 6th to Katie and then the 7th to Chantel, and I had it the other way around. And then obviously some of the later rounds after that, it kind of got a bit... They kind of skewed a little bit. But yeah, ultimately the right person did win. Katie made all the adjustments I said that she needed to make in basis picks. And I said, at her age, there's one more big performance in there. And ultimately she had that big performance. And realistically, I think that she just wanted it more than Chantel did. And I don't say that like Chantel wasn't hungry. She was. But I think Chantel almost capitulated to some of Katie's nullifying tactics, as opposed to changing up her game plan and finding a new tactic to win the fight. So yeah, congratulations to Katie. Sort of brilliant performance, rolled back the years, and I do think it was actually one of her best performances, not just coming off of a defeat, but fighting against adversity, being the underdog, and coming through the fire. It was, I think it's this one and then the first and then the Serrano fight, I think was the two best, and followed possibly by the Natasha Jonas fight, if we're talking about the elite level. And then the two Delphine Pursoon fights probably before. Oh, actually no, Christina Leonardo too. That was, she had a really good fight with Christina. But yeah, big ups. Right, now let's move over to the card on Showtime. I got every one of my predictions from Predictions League correct, except for the main event. We'll talk about that in a moment. Some of the methods I didn't get. I did think that I thought Michelle Rivera would score like an 8th round TKO over Sergey Lipinets, but he ended up going points. But I did predict Rivera to win that. I predicted Lamont Roach to win I predicted majority decision. It ended up being a split decision. So the majorities and the splits is very hard to call, but I knew I predicted he'd win by decision, even though he was coming off of over a year and nearly a year and a half of inactivity. I got that one right. I predicted that Subriel Matias would win by 7th round KO because I just felt like he would bust up Ergashev in the earlier rounds, and ultimately Ergashev's got a lot of KOs, but he hasn't got any credible names on his opponent on his resume. He has any credible opponents on the resume except for maybe Mikhail Fox, and that was just a laboured 10 round decision. So I knew that when Matthias would just sort of get to work, he would just sort of break down Ergashev, and eventually that would be it. And I think that ended after, I think it ended in the corner at the 6th round. So yeah, the prediction kind of stuck on that one. I did say I think that it would be a stoppage, possibly in a brutal fashion. But yeah, got that one. Jamal Charlo, unanimous decision. I did predict that as well. I said it would probably be like maybe an uninspired performance. I watched it, but my stream was kind of messing up. So I'm going to have to go back and re-watch it, but the prediction stuck as well. It didn't look that great. Jose Benavidez Jr. was there to be hit, but ultimately doesn't really look like Charlo had much of the power to do that, but he did win the majority of the rounds from what I saw on scorecards, and it seemed correct. So let's see what he does moving forward. Now, moving to the main event, I got this one wrong. I think part of the reason I got it wrong is I looked at all of David Benavidez's disadvantages, and I looked at all of his negatives more than I looked at his positives, and that probably was my fault. I've normally picked David in all of his fights, even the Caleb Plant fight. I've done all of that, but this one I thought him having not fought a southpaw for over 7 years, from what I'd heard about the sparring that he had, and he wasn't sparring the right type of people for Andrade, and obviously him being so big at the weight, constantly draining down to 168. I thought all of that was just going to be like a big storm, and Andrade is just going to be, he's not younger, but he's the fresher, and he's the more, he's not killing himself to get through a fight camp. And props to David Benavidez, like he totally ripped up the script, and he basically turned all of the negatives I had into advantages. He didn't really try to box with Andrade on the outside, which is something that I thought he might do. Now, funny enough, let me tell you how I scored this. So the first round I scored for Benavidez because I felt like his jab and sort of he was making Andrade have to sort of move around the ring. Andrade was having some good investment to the body, but I felt that Benavidez was just controlling and affecting the range better, and the fight. But second round I gave to Andrade. The third round was very hard for me to score. Like Andrade was having he was having a lot of moments, but I feel like Benavidez was sort of more consistent, kind of behind the jab, starting to throw a little bit to the body, but his output was starting to increase in the third. But I feel like the most clean, effective punches, especially to the head, which normally trump body shots, was coming from Andrade. So I scored it a draw. I scored it an even 10-10 round. The fourth round, I actually had Andrade up in that round. I thought that he was starting to, even though obviously Benavidez was starting to kind of get into range, get into his stride. Andrade was doing well, picking him off from the outside. He was getting in close, and he was actually bullying Benavidez. He was bullying onto the ropes. He was sitting on the ropes. He was catching, he was throwing uppercuts. He was throwing hooks. Like, he was actually getting through the guard quite consistently. Also, he was still attacking the body. But then obviously the tide turns with the big overhand, the overhand right hook, which goes and it just bypasses the guard, knocks Andrade silly, like hits him just on the temple, just at the front of the temple, and he tries to hold on. Then as he's obviously leaning forward, he dodges 2 punches, but his leg gives out and he ends up on the ground, but it was legit knockdown. And from there he was basically surviving. I think it was only about 15 or 20 seconds left of that round, but he's surviving that, and that was a clear 10-8 because Benavidez was still being competitive, even though Andrade to me was winning the round up until that point. Round 5. Now this is basically Andrade trying to just survive and clear his head, and to me, I'm gonna be real, even though there was no knockdown, I feel like that was another 10-8 round because he just took a beating almost the entire round. very rarely threw back. I think he only threw back in spurts just to stop the referee from jumping in. But he survived it. But I still feel like that was a strong 10-8 again from David Benavidez. Round 6 now. Funnily enough, in round 6, even though I still think Benavidez was winning the round, like if you look at the round itself, Andrade had a couple of almost last stand moments in that round, and there was a period in the middle part of it, and I don't think it was my eyes deceiving me. I think Demetrius caught David with something and it wobbled him. He wobbled on his feet, like he did a little bit. It looked like he done a little bit of a dance, but I don't think Demetrius either saw it or was able to like capitalize because of he'd been battered for so long over the last two. But I noticed there was that, and then there was a couple other shots that he threw, especially towards the end of the round. They was getting through and they looked like they was bothering David. Now I could be wrong. I need to go back and rewatch it, but it did look as if all of a sudden Demetrius has had a little bit of success there. But David obviously has managed to come back just after that, throw some shots of his own. Then bell goes, and obviously you can see Demetrius in the corner. He's using the ropes, walking to, and then the ref's like, look, I can't see another round like that. Like, you need to show me something this round. And the ref's just there, just in the corner, just look, like, whatever. And then the corner's just looking, and I guess they're looking at him, and they're like, we could send him back out, but is there any point? I don't think the snowball effect is gonna keep coming from David, and I don't think he's got enough in the tank to survive this, and he hasn't done enough damage or hurt him enough for us to feel like he can get through this. So with the corner, one of the assistants said, no, okay, cool, that's fine, leave it. Let's call it off. But what I will say is Demetrius didn't quit. He didn't give any body language like he didn't want to go back out there. He looked like he was ready to go back out for round 7, but it was a great stoppage because again there wasn't very little left, and it was only going to be more of a beatdown in the 7th, and the ref was probably going to jump in anyway, even if he was firing back, because he didn't like the shots he was taking. Now, to be fair, he did slip and ride and roll quite a few of them, but there was just too many heavy shots getting through flush, and it was just, you could tell that they was just causing effects every time they went through. Part of that, obviously, he does have that unorthodox style where it looks like he's all over the place at times, but the effect was there. So look, congrats to Benavidez. That the punch output is still a lot less when he's fighting these upper opposition, and I feel like that's where he's gonna come unstuck in that top division. It's sort of like that top echelon of opponents, because he's not throwing these big 4, 5, 6, 7 punch combinations like he does against the lower weight guys, or the guys coming up through the weight classes who aren't as naturally big as him. But again, he used his size to his advantage. He didn't stay on the outside. He made sure to try and keep as close as he could with the high guard, picking his shots. He executed a very, very good plan, and considering again it was a southpaw that he hasn't dealt with for 7 years, I can't say much bad about him. There was some things that I noticed, but I don't even want to bring them up right now. Congrats to him. Again, luckily I didn't put a bet on this fight, but yeah, I did think Andrade I thought he would nick it via decision. I thought he would win the majority of the first round, and David totally ripped up that script, which hasn't been the case prior to that. So I don't think Canelo is the next fight for him. I don't think they're going to do it Cinco de Mayo personally. I think that if they do it, it's going to be for Mexican Independence Day, September 2024. That's what I think they're going to look at, as opposed to Cinco de Mayo. But it would be interesting who David chooses to fight next, if he chooses to fight. I don't think it would be advisable for him to wait until September and basically sit on this victory. Yeah, I think he needs another fight, especially to keep the body weight down. But yeah, I can't really say much else. Also, big up to Kevin Lorena. He won a unanimous decision against Senad Gashi, which I also predicted on my predictions league. Like I said, I got all of my predictions right except that main event. So it was near perfect, even though not all the methods came through, but most of them came through how I wanted. But look, ultimately, that's the weekend. Pretty much it wrapped up. Shout out to October Red. I know she done a watch along for Cameron Taylor too. I wasn't a part of it, but I know that she was doing one, so big up to her. Hope it was a great success. I'm sure it was. And big up to Danny from Fight Fan TV. He calls David Benavidez his nephew, so he's very happy right now. Him and my guy Starter. Starter owes him some money. They bet on the fight, so yeah, bad times for him. But he did a watch along for Benavidez and Andrade. So if you haven't seen any of those, you want to take a look, feel free to jump on YouTube and go to either of their channels. I'll put their channels in the description below, and you can take a quick look at those watch alongs, or at least just click on them, give them a like, and you know, whatever. Same to Ring IQ. I know he did one, and shout out to Beats. I know he done one also. But yep, that's the weekend wrapped up. I'm gonna go to the gym now. I've got some other things I need to do after that, so gym has to be early today. Thank you. We'll see about content for the week coming, but for right now, that's the weekend wrapped. I will catch you in the new week. Have a good evening, whatever you're doing. Hope you had a good weekend. Peace.